I want to talk to Joe, who is calling in from Virginia. Joe, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. How can we help?
I think we've talked like, what, 3 or 4 times? You remember me?
Yeah, a couple times. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So how can I help you today?
And so well, so.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I was just curious, why are you an atheist activist?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, to be an atheist activist, I mean, like, I think that's fair to say that. It's not like what I would prefer. I would prefer, you know, I'm like Cynthia, right? I would prefer that I'm like a critical thinking advocate, right? Or I would prefer that I'm a skeptic advocate, because atheism can mean different. Uh-huh.
I'm kind of using your own words. I just watched a video where you called yourself an atheist.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. I just think that like what I advocate for is more than just the atheist position, right? I just want to make that clear for people because arguably, like, depending on who you ask, I'm not even a real atheist. You know, I've used different terms for myself. I've used atheist before, you know, but I am the most clear I can give to people is I'm an ex-Christian. That's the most meaningful label to me that I like now. And obviously, I'm doing volunteer work for the atheist community of Austin. So yeah, it's fair to call me an atheist activist in that sense, I guess. But it's not the same kind of activism I would say like it is for other kinds of activism. But like, I guess, okay, to answer your question, right? Why do I do this? Okay, so like this stuff is important to me, man. Like if I heard about the stuff that I talk about every week on this show when I was a kid, I'd be a completely different person a lot sooner. And this stuff that we talk about as atheists, the stuff like when it comes to the Bible, when it talks about Christian politics, when we're talking about the history of the world that was denied to people of other races and sexual orientations because of a religious hegemony that has been going on for eons. That's really important. And I think more people should know about it and more people shouldn't be afraid to have these conversations. And also be able to look at other atheists as people too, not just evil people who just want to have sex outside of marriage and I don't know, go to hell and be separate from God, right? Like I think
spirit cook. Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of reasons why, Joe. There's a lot of reasons why.
Okay. Yeah, I know. What I've noticed is a lot of people, see, I come from a very secular background. I grew up in an extremely secular household and environment and, you know, never thought about God or so. But I see a lot of times people who come from these very religious backgrounds go on to become the more extreme atheists. And like me, I've changed. I've gone the other way. You went that way and I went the other way. So I came to believe actually that God does exist. Through the argument evidence.
May I ask a question, Joe? May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Could you please tell me exactly what an extreme atheist is?
Oh, I consider people who spend their life, when you become atheist and you spend your whole life talking about God, people, mostly I consider this whole atheist movement online kind of more militant atheist type people, and so
you know, I don't know, Joe. I talk about atheism the exact number of times the average Christian talks about God, because the average Christian goes to church once a week on Sunday, and I have a show that happens once a week on Friday nights. So I don't know if that makes the average Christian an extreme Christian, but that's standard. I don't know.
Do you spend the rest of your days like debating God or no?
To be honest, I'm like taking a sabbatical off the internet outside of this show right now. You know, like life's just crazy. But I mean, I do talk about it outside of Friday nights once a week. Yeah, for sure, but not every week. I mean, I'm just like the average Christian in that sense. You know, the average Christian isn't having a conversation about God every day of their lives, but if they're going to church every Sunday and they're meeting in community with their other Christians, then yeah, I mean, I think there's a comparison.
And to add on to that, I know I cannot speak for every atheist because I am not every atheist, but I know for myself that being an atheist is just one part of my life. Right. It is not my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, and even the only time that I would get into a so-called debate is if I am personally challenged by atheists about why me being an atheist is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I remember I recently went on a road trip, and I was talking to a person who told me that they're not necessarily religious, but they believe in God. And then I said, well, who is God? And she said the universe. And then I turned to another person who was a Christian. I said, who is God? And I got a completely different answer. And I said, see, both of you all said that you believe in God, but you can't even agree on who God is. Okay. So my pushback is that if you are a person that is trying to convince me, and this is oftentimes what I observe on the other side of the aisle, and I know that because Dan, also, I am an ex-Christian. I've been a Christian way longer in my life than I was an atheist. And I even was a minister. I studied to be a minister. So I did that street, evangelizing. Right. And oftentimes what ends up happening is that you will get way more proselytization from those who are believers on to people who don't believe. And then oftentimes you have to come up with these counters to just substantiate your position as a non-believer. And so like, it may sometimes be perception about being extreme per se from, those who may believe, only because like, and then oftentimes it's because like you are way more outspoken about it. Like, it's kind of like, I remember I was talking to another person on another show, and oftentimes I talk a lot about racism. And I was told by a person that the only reason that racism is existing because people keep talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's exactly what it's not. Right. Yeah. And the thing about it is that I said, no, we talk about it because it does exist. And then you need to shine the light on it because we need to figure out as a community how to dismantle it because it hurts people, and if I switch back to this whole conversation about, a perceived extreme atheist, if we talk about our non-belief, because there was a time in different areas that if you were a out non-believer, that you could lose your life.
Yeah.
And there's still places in this world where if you are an out atheist, that you can, because like that particular country happens to be ruled by a more religious sect, then again, you can lose your life. So most of the times, like, when you have like what Dan existing and myself and others that are come on shows like this with the ACA, it's more so like, no, it's not necessarily that we're extreme. It's just that we are very much so vocal about our position, and it should be to the point where if we are in a country where we say that we have freedom of speech and freedom of religion and et cetera, we should be able to have, be able to do that without somebody else actually, constantly beating us down and telling us that we're wrong.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I think you should do whatever you want. I have no problem with. You have every right to, join ACA, talk about whatever you want. That's fine. I just think, for me personally, that's just how I view. I think for me, if you're just an atheist and that's all you are, you should just be like, I don't believe in God, and then just never talk about it again. But what I see is atheists just spend their whole life talking about God, which to me comes across more as anti-theism, where they have such a negative view of religion and I guess maybe their experience and whatever, and just
because religion's never hurt anybody, right, Joe? It's not worth talking about. No, I'm being unnecessarily sarcastic, right? So, but like the privilege of being in a Christian majority country makes it seem like that when a minority group is speaking out, that it seems like it's extreme. But the truth is, Christianity in whole, and I'm not talking about you specifically, Joe, but the history of Christianity is filled with violence and is filled with people trying to radicalize others in the name of their faith and colonizing others in the name of their faith and the world that we live in now is the result of that. So like you may have come to Christianity yourself, but most people in this country were born into it. And the reason why they're born into it is because their parents were born into it, and they were born into it because either they were conquered by a Christian group of people, or they were under the control of a Christian part of the world, whether, you know, if you go back far enough, the Catholic Church, or, you know, other countries that ruled with that lack of separation between church and state. There, right?
Oh, a perfect example. U.S. chattel slavery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like it seems extreme because we're like the minority group, and it's kind of weird because not everybody talks about it. We talk about it, but it's also because it matters a lot to us, and we have to face more as atheists every day than the average Christian does in their belief, because being a Christian in the US, that's just normal. Nobody bats an eyelash when you say you believe in Jesus. If I came up to my workplace tomorrow and said, I believe that 2,000 years ago, a man rose from the dead and healed a bunch of people and went to heaven after he died, that's just Tuesday in the United States. That's just every day here. But if I say, yeah, I actually don't think that's true, people will like not talk to me because of that. Like that's a big social barrier for some people.
And,
so it's
to even to add on to that, you know, I'm African American and an atheist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because like I have been told, like, how are you Black and an atheist? I'm like, because I happen to be Black and don't believe in God. Yeah, full stop. But no, but like even the Pew Research has put out a survey that 79% of African Americans identify as Christian. Yeah, in the United States. I mean, that's a lot of people. Right. And you know what the percentage was for a Black atheist? Anybody? I'll tell you, less than 1%.
Yeah.
Less than 1%. So like, yeah, of course, like, you know, because like oftentimes, like, as you just said, Dan, we are a minority, and I'm a minority within a minority of being of this particular mind. And oftentimes can be to the point where I'm kind of shunned because, you know, because I'm part of a group that is so religious, you know. Right. Thank goodness that the particular denomination that I grew up in was like one of those mainline ones. Specifically, I grew up Episcopal, and I went to Catholic school, but that's neither here nor there. So they didn't have like this really hard line ideology when it came to Christianity. But if I happened to have gone to like more of a more Black, Southern, you know, charismatic, evangelical type of church, curtains, baby. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Absolutely. And I have friends that, you know, I have gone to church with in the past that know that I'm an atheist now, and I'm not talking to her. She's been captured by Satan. You know, and I mean, and that's the thing. And I'm just like, damn, like, just because I'm still the same person, but that's the type of stuff that we face. And I'm just like, why? I personally have a wish that people can just be people without having to have pushback for being who they are. Yeah, that's my personal wish. I know that that's pretty ideological, but you know, that's where I'm at. So.
Joe, you still with us?
Yeah, I mean, you guys kept talking, so I've been just listening. Yeah, just you know, I understand your views and everything, and you know, I'm not a religious person. I just happen to believe, you know, I don't go to church or anything. I just happen to believe, you know, I did a lot of research and stuff on it, and came to a different conclusion than you. Dan, did you have a bad experience? You seem like, I mean, I saw your old videos with Anthony Magnavosco, and you know, you seem like a real nice guy. Did you have a bad experience growing up with church, or?
Does it matter if I had a bad experience?
Doesn't matter to me. I'm just wondering.
Well, it's just interesting that that's something that you'd ask, right? Because if I said that if you were a Christian, right, and I asked you, oh, are you a Christian because you had a bad experience with atheism growing up? Like, that's just not usually like a thing that comes up, right? But it is a stereotype that people who, you know, are non-religious tend to face. But no, my Christian upbringing was for the most part great. It's pretty awesome. What I realized though was that me being a part of the larger systems, right, the larger Christian hegemony, was actually bringing other people down in ways that were unconscious. Than what I realized, right? So like I was you know, I was not pro LGBT when I was a Christian, right? I had lots of prejudices against LGBT people, and that came from my Christian upbringing, straight up. That came from the people around me. And even though I wasn't an active contributor in the sense that I wasn't protesting, I wasn't like posting mean comments online, my attitudes and the way that I navigated myself in the world was because of my Christian upbringing, 100%. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in talking about with other people when I talk about Christianity, alongside the like factual truth of whether or not a guy rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, right? Like that's also important, because I think people should know that. But like I am genuinely interested in how these beliefs relate to other beliefs and shape the way that we interact in the world. Because if it was just a matter of, yes, I believe a singular historical event happened, or that there was a creator God, then I don't think Cynthia and I would be here, because, you know, who cares, right? But it's not just about that. It's more than that. There's a network of beliefs happening here that are related to that, and that's really what we try to talk about more. I feel like, at least that's what I'm more interested in. I don't know about you, Cynthia.
You know, I cannot help but to go back to this whole question when you just asked Joe to Dan if he had a bad experience growing up in church. It almost reminded me of people saying that folks turn out to be LGBTQIA plus because they were they were touched incorrectly as children.
Right.
You know, so like some type of trauma had to happen to them in order for them to be this, you know. And I know for me personally, there was no trauma. You know, there was a lot of things that happened when I was in church that I did not agree with, you know, that came across the pulpit, but no one I know personally abused me. Right. You know, I came to my conclusions through, I just didn't have a good reason to believe in God. Right. And, you know, and depending on what atheists that you speak with, because like I've known people who actually grew up in cults and who have been abused, but they still have some type of faith measure, and they do believe in God. Some of them even contribute their being able to get out of a cult because of their belief in God, you know? So it's not always about a trauma thing, right? So like, you know, so but even back to myself, like, you know, like I said, I just reasoned my way out of it. Like when I thought about, if I had unequivocal proof that said deity that was the creator of the universe existed, I did not. And then when you happen to go to all of these other theologians who happen to be way smarter than I, come up with their arguments about and call it evidence for the existence of God, they fall short. You know, because like, here's the thing. If I were to say, I have a mother, if I say I have a mother and you say, well, prove you have a mother, you know, I can pull out my birth certificate with her name on it. I can call her on the phone. You can come to my house right now. You can meet her. You know what I'm saying? So I can actually demonstrate that my mother exists. But those particular methodologies we can't use with God at all. You know, and even like when I had like this whole back and forth with this other lady who was trying to proselytize to me, I just had to stop. I said, you can't prove God exists. And then she said, yes, I can. I was like, no, you can't. Nobody can. And she said, well, but prove God doesn't exist. I said, I can't. So we're going to stop this conversation right now.
And I also too, like, and I want to let Joe talk here too, but like the fact that people have traumatic experiences in their churches, and that's what people ask, like, what what does that say about the churches that is such a common enough thing, right? That has to be an attribute for people. Like really, like now it's used as an argument to say, oh, well, this is why you are the way they are, because this group of people was bad towards you. Like, yes, I think that's valid for most people, actually. Like if I was part of Scientology and the Scientologists abused me, I think that's a good reason to go against Scientology, right? But you know, I don't know. That already gets lost on some people, it seems like.
Yeah, it does. Oh well.
Anyway, Joe, we're oh man, it looks like our call actually dropped here. Maybe he got tired of us talking, but look, like when you're asking us questions like, what was it trauma the reason why? No, I've talked about this. You can look at my videos before. I didn't have the same thing as you, Cynthia. I didn't have any reason to believe anymore. The more that I thought about the reasons why I believed, and I found that the reasons why I did believe were not good reasons upon further examinations. Why didn't I think about that before? Because nobody questioned me about it. Nobody was willing to talk to me about it. I grew up I did youth group my whole life. I was a part of a college evangelical ministry. I did summer camps and stuff. I mean, that was my life. Who was going to challenge me in that environment to a degree that's significant enough to change my worldview? Most people just don't. I wasn't exposed to that. But the more I got exposed to outside opinions, the more I developed my own worldview. And that's why shows like this exist. So we can help other people develop their own worldview. Whether you become an atheist or something else, I just want you to find good reasons to believe in what you believe. And that's why I'm doing this. So
I totally agree. Talk about it, and especially like when you grow up in environments like that. Those are echo chambers.
Right. Exactly.
Going to challenge you on your belief.
I definitely grew up in an echo chamber. Yeah. For sure. It may not be what most people think of as an echo chamber, but it really was. If you don't know how to get out of that chamber, like if you don't know what's even out there to even question the resources, then yeah, you're part of an echo chamber for sure.